The alien werewolf was not like the others in his species. From the moment he was born, everyone had looked at him with disgust. His skin was uneven, patches of dark and light, creating a pattern that seemed chaotic, and his eyes didn't shine like the others. Instead, they seemed too large, too round, almost sad. His teeth were jagged, and his fur, what little he had, was patchy and coarse. The elders of his clan whispered behind his back. The young ones stared at him and laughed when they thought he wasn't looking. He quickly learned that he was not wanted, and that lesson sank deep into his bones. Every day, he wandered the edges of the territory, moving quietly, careful not to attract attention. He scavenged for food among the rocks and thorny bush, catching small creatures that the stronger members of his species ignored. He was clever, more clever than most realized, because survival demanded it. Hunger and fear had sharpened his senses. He could smell the tiniest rustle of movement in the bushes, hear the softest footfall on the alien soil, and see even in the faintest dim light. But cleverness was not enough to make him feel like he belonged out at night when the clan gathered. In the warmth of their communal caves, he would hide in shadows, listening. He could hear their laughter, their stories, the sounds of closeness and family, and he would feel a sharp emptiness, a hollowness that gnawed at him from inside. There was no one to greet him, no one to share warmth with, no one to tell him he was okay just as he was. The world had taught him that ugliness was something to hide. The other young werewolves ran past him during the day, chasing each other through the crystalline trees and glowing moss that carpeted their land. They leaped with grace, their fur glinting in the faint sunlight that filtered through the thick alien canopy. He tried once, long ago, to join them, but they laughed at him, pushing him back into the dirt. His limbs were awkward, his movements stiff, and the laughter that followed burned into his mind. From that moment, he learned to keep away, to stay on the fringes. One evening, after a particularly long day of hunting and hiding, he sat on a ridge overlooking the valley where the clan lived. The sky above was streaked with strange colors, green and purple and blue, a painting that no human artist could ever replicate. Stars twinkled in patterns he had never seen named, and the moons cast a faint silver glow over the land. The beauty of it all made him feel small and lonely at the same time. He wished, not for the first time, that someone would see him, not just his body, but the being inside. He thought about how different he was, not just in looks, but in the way he felt. He noticed things others didn't. A bird singing too softly. For the average ear, the slight tremble of the earth signaling the movement of prey, even the faint vibrations of emotions from those around him. But when he tried to act on these observations, the others would either ignore him or laugh. His gifts, the things that could have made him valuable, were unnoticed because he didn't fit their idea of beauty or strength out at times. The loneliness was almost unbearable. He would lie curled under a fallen tree, the rough bark scratching his back, and wonder what it would be like to be loved, to be part of something bigger than himself. He imagined what it would feel like to run freely with the others without the sting of their mockery in his ears. He dreamed of warmth and laughter that included him, of hands or claws that touched him kindly rather than with disgust. These thoughts both comforted and tortured him. Despite everything, he never stopped moving, never stopped trying to survive. Life had made him cautious, but it had also made him resilient. He had learned to find food where no one else looked, to climb cliffs others would never attempt, to hide in places impossible for the strongest hunters to reach. Each day was a test, and though the world seemed stacked against him, he refused to give up. His determination was quiet but fierce, a fire burning beneath his rough exterior. One morning, as the sky turned a soft shade of orange and the moons began their slow descent, he discovered a small pool of water hidden behind jagged rocks. The pools shimmered with an otherworldly glow, reflecting the sky above. He approached cautiously, thinking it might be dangerous, but hunger and thirst won over fear. Kneeling beside the water, he drank deeply, feeling the cool liquid soothe the dryness of his throat. He looked at his reflection for the first time in months. The eyes staring back at him were still large, still strange, but there was a spark in them that had not been there before, a quiet, stubborn life force that refused to die. That day, something changed inside him. It was not sudden, not traumatic, but subtle. He felt aware, more aware than usual. He could feel the pulse of the land beneath him, the gentle rhythm of creatures moving in the distance, even the soft murmur of the wind through the trees. His senses felt sharper, alive in ways that frightened him. He did not understand what it meant, only that he felt different. And in that difference, he felt the first hint of hope he had experienced in his short, hard life dot as the sun dipped. Lower, painting the sky with deep shades of red and violet, he curled into a ball for warmth and comfort. He listened to the distant sounds of his clan celebrating the day, their voices carrying across the valley. He wanted to be angry, to resent them for the rejection and mockery, but instead he felt a strange mixture of longing and determination. One day, he told himself quietly, one day they would see him not as ugly, not as strange, but as someone who mattered. Night fell, and the stars blazed brightly above. The werewolf's mind wandered as he lay beneath the twinkling lights. He imagined traveling beyond the mountains, beyond the forests, beyond the very world that had so cruelly judged him. He dreamed of places where no one cared about appearances, where survival and cleverness were valued above all else. Somewhere out there, he felt certain life could be different. Life could be fair. Before sleep took him, he made a small promise. To himself, he would survive. He would grow stronger. And one day, perhaps, the galaxy would notice him, not as the ugly werewolf of a judgmental clan, but as a force to be reckoned with. He closed his eyes with a shiver of excitement and fear, the cool night air brushing against his patchy fur. For the first time, he felt that maybe, just maybe, his story was only beginning. The next morning, the alien werewolf woke to a strange feeling in his body. It was subtle at first, like a hum of energy running through his veins, but it quickly grew stronger. His senses seemed sharper than ever. He could feel the slightest vibrations of movement across the ground, even from creatures far beyond his usual hunting grounds. He could smell things that he had never noticed before, the distant flowers blooming in the cliffs, the faint scent of water far down in a hidden ravine, even the faint traces of the clan moving in the valley dot. At first, he thought he might be imagining things. Maybe the hunger and sleepless nights had played tricks on him. But then it happened again. While walking along a rocky path, he caught sight of a small creature scuttling under a bush. Usually, he would have had to get very close to see it. But this time he saw it from a distance, every detail clear, as if the creature were right in front of him. His heart pounded with excitement. Something inside him was changing, something powerful. The day passed slowly as he experimented with these new abilities. He leaped over cliffs with ease, catching glimpses of creatures hidden behind thick foliage. He realized he could move quietly, almost invisibly, even when running through dry leaves and brittle branches. Every movement felt precise, controlled, and unlike anything he had done before. The more he tried, the more he felt a strange confidence building inside him. But the change was not only physical. He also felt his mind sharpening. Thoughts came faster, and he understood patterns in the environment that he had never noticed. He could predict where prey would move, sense danger before it arrived, and even feel the emotions of the creatures around him. The loneliness that had haunted him for so long began to feel less heavy. He started to feel like he might finally have a purpose. As he explored the outskirts of the forest, he discovered a hidden cave, partially covered by vines. Curiosity pulled him inside. The cave was cool and dark, and as he stepped deeper, he noticed strange markings on the walls. They were old, almost faded, but they glowed faintly when he touched them. Something about the symbols felt familiar, though he could not understand why. The cave seemed alive in a way that both excited and scared him. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from deeper inside the cave. At first, he thought it was an animal, but then he realized it was more than that, a soft hum, almost like a whisper carried by the stone itself. He followed the sound cautiously, ears twitching, senses alert. As he reached a small chamber at the back, he saw a shimmering light hovering in the air. He approached slowly, heart pounding with both fear and fascination. The light seemed to respond to him, shifting and pulsing as he moved closer. When he reached out, his paw brushed the light, and a surge of energy ran through him. His body trembled, and his mind expanded in ways he had never experienced. He could see far beyond the cave, almost like he was looking across the valley from a distance. Colors seemed brighter, and he felt connected to everything: the trees, the wind, the creatures, even the stars above. He realized that the change in him was not just physical. Something deep inside had awakened, a power he did not understand, but could feel with certainty. He spent hours in the cave, testing this new energy. He tried to focus it, moving objects with a thought, sensing vibrations in the stone walls, even feeling the faint pulse of life from plants outside. Every experiment left him exhausted but exhilarated. He realized he was not just strong or fast. He was capable of something extraordinary. For the first time, he felt that he was not just an outcast, not just the ugly werewolf. He was something more, something that might matter in ways the clan could never imagine. Night fell, and he left the cave reluctantly, his mind buzzing with new possibilities. The sky was filled with streaks of light as distant meteors passed through the atmosphere. He stopped for a moment to watch, feeling the hum of energy in his body sync with the rhythm of the cosmos. A sense of wonder filled him. He realized that the universe was larger than he had ever imagined, and that he might have a role to play in it, even if no one had ever believed in him before. But as he returned to the outskirts of the clan's territory, he could not ignore the loneliness that still lingered. Even with this new power, he had no one to share it with, no one to understand what he was becoming. He thought of the clan laughing at him, the coldness in their eyes, the way they had turned away from him all those years. Anger flared for a moment, but it was mixed with something else, a quiet determination. One day he would show them, not with words, but with actions that no one could ignore. The nights became his time for practice. He would run through the forests, leap over cliffs, and test the limits of his strength and senses. Each night he grew stronger. Each day his confidence grew. But he also learned caution. The clan was still dangerous, still capable of harming him if they discovered what he could do. He learned to hide his abilities, to remain invisible when needed, and to move silently even when his heart was racing. Survival had always been his teacher, and now it was shaping him into something far beyond what anyone had expected. Then, one day, while exploring a narrow valley, he found another strange phenomenon. A patch of land glowed faintly under the alien sunlight. As he stepped closer, he noticed that the ground itself seemed to respond to his presence. Plants bent toward him, the wind shifted gently, and the faint vibrations of energy ran along the surface. He realized that his awakening was not just within him. It connected him to the world around him. He felt a deep sense of unity, as if he were part of something larger, something the clan had never understood. He spent hours meditating in that valley, learning to control the flow of energy, sensing the rhythms of life all around him. Each time he focused, he felt stronger, more alive, and more aware. The fear that had defined his life began to fade, replaced by a quiet courage. He started to imagine the future, not just for himself, but for the world he lived in. If he could harness this power, maybe he could protect the weak. Maybe he could make a difference where none had expected it. By the time he returned to the ridge overlooking the clan, the sun had set. He watched them in the valley, laughing and playing as they always did, unaware of the transformation happening on the outskirts. A small smile touched his face. He no longer felt invisible. He no longer felt powerless. Something inside him had awakened, and even if the clan could not see it yet, he knew the universe had noticed. That night, lying beneath the alien sky, he made a promise to himself. He would survive. He would grow stronger. And one day, the galaxy would know his name, not as the ugly werewolf, not as the outcast, but as a force to be reckoned with. As he drifted into sleep, the hum of energy still thrumming through him, he realized that his journey had only just begun. The alien werewolf had spent many days learning to control the strange energy that had awakened inside him. Each morning, he tested his senses, pushed his strength, and explored the limits of what he could do. He was becoming faster, sharper, and more aware of everything around him. But even with all this growth, he felt something was missing. He had no one to share his discoveries with, no one to understand what he had become. The loneliness he had felt for so long still weighed on him, though now it was mixed with a quiet excitement for what lay ahead. One day, as he moved along a winding canyon far from the clan, he noticed a small metallic craft descending from the sky. It was unlike anything he had seen before. Sleek, smooth, and glowing faintly, it hovered just above the rocky ground. The werewolf froze, his ears flattening against his head. He had learned caution well. Years of being rejected and hunted by his own clan had made him wary of anything, new or unexpected. Yet something about this craft intrigued him. It felt different. He stayed hidden, watching as a figure emerged from the craft. Unlike anyone from his clan, this being moved carefully, deliberately, scanning the environment with curiosity rather than fear or judgment. The werewolf could sense something immediately. This creature was not there to hunt or harm. There was a calmness about it, a quiet respect for life in all its forms. That feeling pulled at him, and for the first time in his life, he considered stepping out of hiding. The being moved closer, kneeling near a small cluster of plants and examining them. Its hands were delicate, and it touched each plant gently. As if afraid to hurt it, the werewolf's curiosity grew. He inched closer, crouching behind a boulder, watching. The creature was unlike anything he had ever seen, tall, with smooth skin, eyes that shone with intelligence, and a presence that radiated calm understanding. For a moment, the werewolf forgot to hide. He was fascinated. Suddenly, the figure looked up, and their eyes met. The werewolf froze. There was no fear in those eyes, no judgment, only a quiet curiosity. The being did not approach aggressively or call out. It simply observed. And in that observation, the werewolf felt something he had never felt before recognition. He was seen, truly seen, not as a mistake or a failure, but as something unique. His heart raced. Could it be possible that someone, even a stranger from the stars, could accept him? The being took a slow step forward, and the werewolf stepped back instinctively, unsure if he could trust this encounter. He had been hurt too many times, laughed at and abandoned, and the memory of those nights alone in the forest still burned sharply in his mind. Yet something about the calmness of this visitor drew him out. He stayed where he was, watching, his body tense but his mind curious. Over the next few hours, he observed the being from a distance. It collected samples of rocks, plants, and even. The faint hum of energy from the air. The werewolf felt a strange resonance, almost as if the being could sense the energy that had awakened within him. He experimented quietly, focusing his energy in small bursts, and to his surprise, the visitor reacted subtly, turning slightly in his direction, as if acknowledging it. This small interaction filled him with both wonder and hope. As the day turned to evening, the werewolf felt hunger gnaw at him. He needed to hunt, but he did not want to leave the presence of the visitor entirely. Carefully, he moved closer under the cover of shadows, watching as the being prepared a small device that glowed softly. From it came a faint warmth and a scent of food. The werewolf's stomach growled, and he realized that for the first time in a long time, he did not feel alone. Even at a distance, the presence of someone who seemed to understand him in some small way was comforting. The visitor finally noticed him more clearly. Instead of shouting or reacting with alarm, the being remained calm, extending a hand slowly. In greeting, the werewolf froze, unsure what to do. He had never been approached with kindness. In all his life, no one had offered acceptance, only rejection or ridicule. Yet something deep inside him urged him forward. Slowly, cautiously, he stepped from the shadows. His eyes met the being's again, and he sensed no threat, only patience and curiosity. When he was close enough, the being offered a small portion of food. The werewolf hesitated, then sniffed it, reassured by the gentle way it was held. He took it, tasting it carefully. It was unlike anything he had eaten before, but nourishing and warm. He felt a strange connection forming, a bond that required no words. For the first time, he felt the possibility of friendship, of trust, of belonging. The loneliness that had always haunted him seemed to fade slightly, replaced by cautious hope. Days that followed were unlike anything the werewolf had ever experienced. The visitor stayed for longer periods, teaching him in ways that were gentle and patient. They did not push him, but encouraged him to explore his energy, to experiment with his senses, and to learn about the world around him in new ways. Werewolf discovered that the visitor could sense his emotions, that they understood his frustration, fear, and hope, even without words. It was a feeling he had never known, being understood without judgment. Through these encounters, the werewolf grew more confident. He learned to control his energy in small ways, lifting rocks without touching them, sensing the movement of distant creatures, and even creating faint bursts of light with his hands. Each discovery thrilled him, and the visitor cheered quietly, encouraging him without patronizing. For the first time in his life, he felt capable of more than mere survival. He felt like he could be powerful, useful, and maybe even important. Yet the werewolf could not forget the clan entirely. He still watched them from afar, their careless games and laughter a stark reminder of how alone he had once been. He thought of the moments when he had been pushed away, the nights he had spent hiding and shivering, and the cruel words he had overheard. He realized that, even with this new connection and new abilities, he would have to face them someday. He would have to show them that the one they had rejected could not only survive, but thrive. One evening, as the twin moons rose high in the sky, a visitor led him to a small clearing filled with glowing crystals. The light reflected off his fur, highlighting its uneven patches and jagged edges. He expected embarrassment, shame, or laughter, but the visitor did not react in any of these ways. They simply nodded, as if acknowledging him exactly as he was. The werewolf felt a warmth inside, a quiet joy that he had never experienced before. In that moment, he realized that acceptance did not have to come from those who had rejected him. It could come from anyone who saw his value, who recognized the strength and uniqueness inside him. The werewolf's trust in the visitor grew day by day. He began to follow instructions, learning to focus his energy with intention, to sense danger before it arrived, and even to heal small injuries by channeling his energy carefully. Each success built his confidence, and he began to imagine what he could do with this power. If he could grow stronger, control his abilities, and trust himself, maybe he could change the world, or at least protect those who could not protect themselves. By the time the visitor prepared to leave, the werewolf realized he had changed in ways he could never have imagined. He was no longer the scared, lonely outcast who hid in shadows. He was stronger, sharper, and more aware than anyone in his clan. He had someone who had shown him kindness and guidance, someone who believed in him when no one else had. And he understood that this bond, fragile though it might be, was worth protecting with every ounce of his being. As the craft lifted into the sky, glowing faintly against the stars, the werewolf watched silently. A sense of determination filled him. He had been given a glimpse of a future where he could belong, where he could matter, and he would not waste it. He would continue to grow, to learn, and to prepare. And when the time came, the galaxy and his clan would see him not as the ugly werewolf they had rejected, but as a force they could not ignore. That night, under the vast expanse of stars, he made a quiet promise to himself. He would survive. He would grow stronger. And one day, he would show the world that even the one who had been abandoned and overlooked could rise to greatness. For the first time in his life, he felt not just hope, but purpose. And with that purpose burning in his chest, he curled into the familiar warmth of the rocky ridge, the hum of energy in his body, syncing with the rhythm of the universe, ready for whatever the future might bring. The alien werewolf had grown stronger and more confident in the weeks following his encounters with the visitor. Every day, he practiced controlling his energy, sensing the world around him in ways the clan could not even imagine. He moved silently through the forests and mountains, leaping over cliffs with ease, feeling the pulse of life in every plant, rock, and creature. His loneliness had lessened, replaced by purpose. But even with all his progress, he knew that he could not remain hidden forever. One morning, as he tested his strength near a deep ravine, he noticed something unusual. Members of his clan had gathered at the edge of the forest, far too close to his hidden territory. They were restless, their movements sharp, and their voices carried worry and curiosity. The werewolf froze, his instincts warning him that something had changed. For years, they had ignored him, laughed at him, and left him to survive on his own. And now, something had drawn them near. Curiosity pulled him closer, and as he peered from the shadows, he saw why they were there. A strange ripple of energy had spread across the land, a soft hum that made the air vibrate faintly. The plants around the edges of the forest seemed to lean toward it, and the ground itself thrummed with a gentle pulse. The clan did not understand what it was, but they could feel the disturbance, and fear flickered in their eyes. The werewolf felt a quiet smile tug at his lips. He recognized the energy. It was his own. Without realizing it, he had been leaving traces of his power wherever he went, and now the clan was sensing it for the first time. They moved nervously, unsure of what they were feeling, and their leader barked commands that none of them fully understood. The werewolf stayed hidden, observing, feeling a mix of excitement and caution. He had not intended for them to notice, but now that they had, he was ready. For the next few days, the clan attempted to investigate the strange energy. They followed it cautiously, moving through forests and valleys, trying to understand its source. Every time they got close, the werewolf shifted quietly, hiding in plain sight, testing their reactions. He could see fear, curiosity, and even awe flicker across their faces, and it gave him a strange sense of satisfaction. They had ignored him for so long, and now they were beginning to feel the presence of something they had never considered power. One afternoon, as the sun cast, Long shadows across the land, the clan stumbled upon the werewolf directly. He had been practicing in an open clearing, lifting rocks and sending small pulses of energy through the earth. When they saw him, the first reaction was shock. Their jaws dropped, eyes wide, as they took in the sight of the creature they had. Long considered weak and ugly, the energy surrounding him shimmered faintly, making his patchy fur glint strangely in the sunlight. The leader stepped forward cautiously, trying to assert authority as always, but the usual commands felt empty. The werewolf stood his ground, calm and measured. There was no aggression in his stance, only control. He lifted a small stone with his energy, letting it hover in the air, and then dropped it softly to the ground. The clan froze. The energy was undeniable, and they could sense that it was coming from him. For the first time, they saw that he was not powerless. Whispers spread quickly through the group. Could it be him? One asked. The ugly outcast? Another murmured. The werewolf did not move, did not respond. He simply let them observe, letting the truth sink in. They had ignored him, ridiculed him, and left him to the edges of the world. And now, the one they had rejected was showing them something they had never expected: strength, control, and power beyond their understanding. The leader's expression shifted from disbelief to cautious respect. "Show us," he said finally, his voice low but firm. It was not a command to obey, but a challenge, a test. The werewolf nodded subtly and focused his energy. Rocks lifted from the ground, swirling gently around him, and the air shimmered faintly as his senses reached out. In every direction. He did not aim to frighten them, only to demonstrate. The clan watched, their previous arrogance replaced by amazement and uncertainty. Some of the younger members of the clan stepped back nervously, unsure what to make of the display. Others leaned forward, fascinated, unable to tear their eyes away. For years, they had judged him by appearances alone, calling him ugly and weak, and now they were faced with undeniable evidence that they had been wrong. The realization hit them hard. The outcast was no longer a subject of ridicule. He was someone they could not ignore. Over the following days, the werewolf continued to test his abilities, but he did so openly, allowing the clan to witness his growth. He moved with grace and precision, sensing dangers long before they arrived, and demonstrating his ability to manipulate energy in ways that were both subtle and powerful. Each demonstration left the clan more amazed and more uncertain about their previous assumptions. They had underestimated him for so long, and now they were forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Even the leader struggled to maintain authority. The werewolf did not act out of rebellion or anger. He acted with calm confidence and purpose. The clan had always valued strength and skill, and now they were confronted with both, coming from the one they had rejected. It was a humbling experience for them, and many began to feel shame for the way they had treated him. Yet, alongside the shame, there was a growing sense of respect, tinged with fear. They realized that this outcast could protect them or challenge them depending on his will. The werewolf noticed the shift in their attitudes, but he remained patient. He had no desire for revenge, only recognition. He wanted them to see him for what he truly was, not the distorted reflection they had judged him by. Slowly, cautiously, he began to allow small interactions. He would demonstrate his abilities to protect the young ones from minor dangers, guide them away from hazards, and even assist with tasks that previously required multiple clan members. Each act reinforced his growing reputation, and the clan's perception shifted gradually from fear and mockery to admiration and respect. One evening, as the twin moons rose high above, the leader approached the werewolf privately. There was a quiet tension in the air, a mixture of awe and lingering doubt. "You have changed," the leader admitted, voice low. "We were wrong about you. We ignored you when we should have listened, laughed when we should have protected. Show us how to trust you." The werewolf considered the words carefully. He could feel the lingering fear in the leader, the humility, and the desire to understand. He nodded slowly. He had waited for this moment, not to assert dominance, but to redefine the relationship. He would no longer hide, but he would not act out of anger either. Instead, he would guide them, demonstrate his abilities, and show them that even the one they had rejected could become a source of strength and protection. From that moment, the dynamic began to shift. The clan, once dismissive and cruel, started to approach the werewolf with caution and respect. They observed his movements, sought his guidance, and even asked questions about his abilities. The outcast who had been shunned now held the power to influence, teach, and protect. And he did so not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence and calm patience. The change was not instantaneous. Some members of the clan struggled to accept him fully, still haunted by their previous judgments. But over time, even the skeptics began to see that the werewolf's power was real, and his intentions were noble. He did not seek revenge. He sought understanding and mutual respect. By allowing them to witness his abilities without fear or anger, he gradually won their trust. The werewolf also recognized something deeper. The clan's initial rejection had shaped him, forced him to grow stronger, and pushed him to explore abilities he might never have discovered otherwise. Their cruelty had inadvertently prepared him for greatness, teaching him resilience, patience, and the quiet confidence needed to face challenges. Though he did not forgive them entirely, he understood that their disbelief had been a part of his journey, shaping him into the being he had become. As the days passed, the werewolf and the clan learned to coexist in a new way. He guided them through dangers they had once feared, helped them understand the subtle energies of their land, and demonstrated the value of skill, patience, and intelligence over mere appearances. The young ones began to look up to him, not with fear, but with admiration. The elders began to listen when he spoke, recognizing wisdom they had ignored before. And the leader, once dismissive and proud, had begun to treat him as an equal, acknowledging the strength and courage that had been hidden beneath his unusual appearance. By the time the twin moons had completed their cycle, the werewolf was no longer an outcast. He had transformed the clan's perception of him, not through force or anger, but through persistence, intelligence, and the quiet demonstration of his abilities. The very same clan that had shunned him now looked to him for guidance, respect, replacing ridicule, trust replacing doubt. And for the first time, the werewolf felt a sense of belonging, not complete, but enough to know that his life had purpose, that his journey was just beginning, and that the galaxy itself might one day take notice of what he could do. The alien werewolf had grown stronger with every day that passed. His energy, once unpredictable and strange, was now a natural extension of himself. He could sense life and movement across vast distances, feel the subtle shifts of energy in the land, and even anticipate dangers before they arrived. The clan had finally begun to see him not as an outcast, but as a protector, someone whose abilities could safeguard them in ways they could never imagine. Yet even as they came to respect him, a new challenge loomed on the horizon, one that would test his strength and courage like never before. The first warning came in the form of a distant rumble, faint but persistent. At first, the werewolf thought it might be an earthquake or the movement of some enormous creature. But as the days passed, the tremors grew stronger and more rhythmic, and he realized that this was no ordinary disturbance. The land itself seemed to react, plants trembling, water and rivers rippling oddly, and even the wind carrying a strange electric charge. He could feel it in his bones, a deep warning that something massive and dangerous was approaching. He ran to the highest ridge, near the clan's territory, spreading his senses as far as he could. In the distance, he saw a dark, shimmering cloud moving across the sky. It was unlike anything he had ever witnessed, pulsating with energy that was chaotic and destructive. The hairs on his back bristled, and a low growl escaped his throat. This was no simple threat. Whatever it was, it could destroy everything the clan had built, everything he had grown to protect. The clan gathered quickly as he returned, sensing the urgency in his movements. They looked to him with a mixture of fear and hope, realizing that their survival might now depend entirely on him. The leader approached, voice shaking but firm. "What is it?" they asked. "How dangerous is this?" The werewolf focused, extending his senses to the approaching threat. He could feel the raw energy radiating from it, the way it twisted and pulsed, disrupting the natural balance of the land. He could sense its destructive potential, the sheer power it carried. "It is dangerous," he said finally. "It is. Coming toward us, and it will not stop. We must prepare." Panic rippled through the clan at his words. Some of the younger members cried out, fearing the unknown. Others began to argue, unsure of what to do. But the werewolf remained calm, projecting a quiet authority that demanded attention. He taught them to move together, to trust his guidance, and to use the land to their advantage. He showed them how to sense subtle changes in the environment, how to anticipate danger, and how to stay safe while remaining ready to defend themselves. As the days passed, the cosmic threat drew closer, and its power became more visible. The sky darkened unnaturally, and flashes of energy streaked across the horizon. Rivers seemed to boil in some places, and the ground shook with increasing frequency. The clan looked to the werewolf with wide eyes, understanding for the first time the true extent of what he could do. He had spent years hiding, surviving, and learning in secret, but now his strength was needed in full measure. The werewolf began to focus his energy more intentionally. He drew it from the land, from the air, and from within himself, channeling it into a protective shield that expanded slowly around the clan's territory. Rocks hovered, creating barriers. Trees bent to form walls and channels. Even the wind seemed to obey his direction, carrying away dangerous debris and diverting smaller threats. Each effort required immense concentration, and he felt his body and mind stretched to the limit, but he did not falter. The lives of those around him depended on him, and he was determined not to fail. One evening, as the twin moons rose high in the sky, the threat became unmistakable. A massive wave of energy, dark and swirling, moved across the land, reaching the edges of the forest where the clan had gathered. The air vibrated with power, and the ground shook violently. The werewolf sensed the fear radiating from the clan, but he could also sense their trust. They believed in him, even if they did not fully understand what he was doing. That belief gave him strength, and he focused every ounce of his energy into holding the approaching force at bay. The battle was not physical in the way the clan had imagined. The threat was raw energy, destructive and chaotic, and it required control, precision, and courage to confront. The werewolf extended his senses, feeling the flow of energy, guiding it, containing it, bending it away from the clan's territory. He could feel every pulse, every shift, every surge. It was exhausting, but he remained steady, aware that even the smallest mistake could have catastrophic consequences. Hours passed like this, and fatigue began to weigh on him. He could feel his strength waning, his energy stretched thin. Yet he could not stop. The clan depended on him. He remembered the countless days he had spent alone, the hunger, the fear, the rejection. All of it had prepared him for this moment. He had learned resilience, patience, and control, and now he put all of it to use. Each wave of energy that struck his shield was met with focus and determination. Each pulse that threatened the land was redirected safely. The clan watched in awe, unable to fully comprehend the magnitude of what they were seeing. The werewolf, once ignored and mocked, was now their protector, holding back a force that could have destroyed them in minutes. They began to understand the true extent of his abilities, and with that understanding came respect, gratitude, and awe. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the sight. Others stood quietly, hearts pounding, knowing that their survival had been ensured by the one they had once called ugly and weak Dot. As the night deepened, the werewolf felt a shift in the energy. The waves of chaos began to diminish slightly, and the threat slowed as if it were testing him, probing for weaknesses. He focused harder, extending his connection to the land, the air, and even the faint energy of the stars above. He could feel the rhythm of the universe, the flow of life and matter, and he synchronized himself with it. Every pulse, every beat, every vibration became part of him, and through that connection, he found the strength to push back further. Dot by dawn, the threat had slowed considerably. The energy waves no longer reached the clan's territory, and the air felt calmer, less chaotic. The werewolf stood at the center of the clearing, exhausted but unbroken. His fur was matted, his muscles burned, and his chest heaved with deep breaths, but he was victorious. The clan approached cautiously, awe written on every face. They surrounded him, some touching him gently, others bowing in respect, finally recognizing that the one they had neglected had become their savior. The leader stepped forward, voice trembling but firm. "We were wrong," they said. "We ignored. You, mocked you, and cast you aside. But today, you have shown us who you truly are. You have saved us all. We owe you our lives." The werewolf nodded, accepting their words without bitterness. He had no desire for revenge. All he wanted was recognition and understanding. He had proven not through anger or destruction, but through courage, patience, and control that he could protect, guide, and lead. He had turned rejection into strength, loneliness into purpose, and fear into triumph. Over the next few days, the clan began to rebuild and recover. They repaired damage, strengthened their defenses, and adapted to the knowledge that their protector was no longer the weak outcast they had known. The werewolf continued to teach them, guiding their movements, sharing his understanding of energy and the land, and helping them grow stronger in ways they had never imagined. His leadership was quiet but undeniable, rooted in skill, wisdom, and the courage to act when it mattered most. The werewolf looked up at the stars one night, feeling the hum of energy still flowing within him. The threat had passed for now, but he knew the universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges. He understood that this was only the beginning, that greater tests might come, and that his role as protector had only just begun. Yet he felt ready. For the first time, he knew that he was no longer defined by rejection, ugliness, or isolation. He was strong, capable, and seen not just by the clan, but by the world around him. As the clan slept safely in their valley, the werewolf stood watch over them, the wind brushing against his fur, the moons casting gentle light across the land. He had faced the chaos of the universe and held it at bay. He had turned fear into respect, loneliness into purpose, and doubt into strength. And in that quiet moment, he realized something profound. He was no longer just the outcast of a harsh world. He was a force that could protect, guide, and inspire. He was the beginning of a story that the galaxy itself might one day witness. The alien werewolf had grown stronger than he ever imagined. After facing the cosmic threat, he had proven not only to himself, but to the entire clan that he was no longer the outcast, no longer the one who was ignored and ridiculed. The energy within him had become stable, controlled, and powerful, flowing naturally as he moved through the forests and mountains he had once called home. The land itself seemed to recognize him now, responding to his presence with a quiet hum of life. Clan, once dismissive and cruel, now looked at him with respect and awe. The leader, who had once spoken harsh words and dismissed him, approached cautiously. "You have saved us," they said, voice trembling with sincerity. "We were blind. We judged you by what we could see, not by what you could do or who you truly are. We are sorry." The werewolf nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. He had no desire for revenge. His purpose had never been to punish, only to survive, to grow stronger, and to protect. Over time, he had learned that the world was larger than the rejection he had faced, larger than the fear he had carried. And now, standing in the quiet clearing where the clan had gathered, he realized that he was not alone. The younger members of the clan approached next. They had watched him during the battle with the cosmic energy, their eyes wide with amazement. Some reached out hesitantly, wanting to touch him, to feel the presence of the one who had saved them. Others simply stood back, unable to fully express what they felt. But all of them shared one thing, a deep respect that had been earned through courage and action. For the first time in his life, the werewolf felt a sense of belonging. It was not the kind of belonging that came from being accepted blindly, but a belonging earned through strength, patience, and perseverance. He had turned their doubt and fear into admiration. He had transformed their rejection into recognition. And now, he could feel something he had never expected, a quiet joy at being part of a community, a place where he could make a difference. Even as the clan celebrated, the werewolf sensed that his journey was not over. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown threats and wonders that no single being could fully understand. He had faced one cosmic challenge, but he knew there could be others. And deep inside, he felt a pull, a calling beyond the mountains, forests, and valleys of his home. The stars above seemed brighter now, almost as if they were inviting him to step beyond the familiar, to explore the wider universe. He thought back to the visitor who had first shown him kindness, the one who had helped him discover the power within himself. That encounter had changed everything. Without their patience and understanding, he might never have realized his potential. And now, as he stood at the center of his clan, he understood that his strength was not just his own. It was a combination of experience, resilience, guidance, and the countless small moments of perseverance that had carried him through years of isolation. The leader approached again, this time with a small group of elders. "We want you to lead," they said, voices filled with a mixture of hope and caution. "The galaxy is dangerous. Our people need guidance, and you have proven that you can protect them. Will you help us?" The werewolf considered their words carefully. Leadership was not something he had sought. For years, he had simply wanted to survive. But now he realized that his strength and abilities could serve a purpose greater than himself. He could guide the clan, protect them, and prepare them for whatever challenges the universe might bring. He nodded slowly, accepting the responsibility. "I will," he said quietly, "but we will do it together. No one should be left behind or forgotten." Over the next weeks, he worked with the clan to strengthen their territory, teach them to sense energy and anticipate danger, and develop skills that would help them survive in a galaxy full of unknowns. He taught patience, control, and observation, showing them that strength was not only in power, but in wisdom and understanding. Slowly, the clan began to thrive in ways they never had before. They were no longer just survivors. They were a community prepared for the challenges ahead. Word of the alien werewolf. As abilities began to spread beyond the clan. Travelers and scouts from distant regions reported seeing a being who could control energy, sense danger, and act with unmatched skill. Rumors reached other planets, and the galaxy began to take notice. For the first time, the werewolf felt that his story was bigger than the forests and mountains he had known all his life. He was no longer just an outcast. He was becoming a figure of legend. Despite the growing attention, he remained humble. His power was not for glory or recognition, but for protection and guidance. He spent hours each day practicing, refining his control, and preparing for the unexpected. He explored new areas of his territory, feeling the energy of the land, the pulse of life, and the subtle currents of the universe. Each discovery reminded him of how far he had come, from a lonely, ridiculed creature to a protector and guide. One night, as he sat atop a high cliff, watching the stars shimmer above, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The loneliness, the mockery, the fear, they had all been part of his growth. Without them, he might never have discovered the strength, resilience, and power within himself. And as he looked at the galaxy stretching endlessly beyond, he realized that his journey was only beginning. The universe was vast, and he was ready to meet it in the valley below. The clan slept safely, their lives protected by the one they had once cast aside. The younger members dreamed of a future where they could explore, learn, and grow under his guidance. The elders reflected on their past mistakes, humbled by the courage and strength of the one they had ignored. And the leader, once proud and dismissive, now stood quietly, recognizing that true greatness often comes from unexpected places. The werewolf felt a deep sense of peace. He had faced rejection, isolation, and danger, yet he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable than ever. He had discovered his power, earned respect, and found a place where he belonged. But most importantly, he had learned that true strength came not from appearances or approval, but from courage, resilience, and the willingness to rise above adversity. As the twin moons cast their silver light across the valley, he stretched his limbs and felt the energy flowing through him. The land hummed softly, responding to his presence, and the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter. He was ready for whatever came next, whether it was protecting the clan, exploring new worlds, or facing unknown dangers. The galaxy was wide, full of challenges and wonders, and he knew he had the power and courage to face them all. For the first time, the werewolf felt fully complete. He was no longer the ugly outcast, no longer the lonely survivor. He was a protector, a guide, and a force that could change the fate of those around him. And as the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the faint energy of life and the promise of the universe, he understood something profound. The one who had been abandoned, ignored, and underestimated could become a hero, not just to his clan, but to the galaxy itself. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath, feeling the pulse of energy in his body, the rhythm of life in the land, and the vastness of the stars above. The journey had been long, filled with struggle, doubt, and fear. But now he had found his place, his purpose, and his strength. The galaxy had witnessed his rise from rejection to power, from loneliness to belonging, and from fear to courage. And in that quiet moment, standing under the twin moons, he made a silent promise to the universe. He would protect, guide, and inspire. He would continue to grow, explore, and face whatever challenges lay ahead. He had been forgotten once, mocked once, and left alone. But now, he was seen, respected, and ready to shine. The alien werewolf, once cast aside, had become a force that could not be ignored, a true hero of the galaxy.